YouTube. What is that word? It's your boy Marko Stats, and it's another episode of Marko Stats Reacts. Today we're gonna take you guys all the way to the land of my mother's, Brazil. All right, for those of you guys who don't know, my mom is from Brazil. I am Brazilian, and our family is from South Brazil, from a small town that's called Venancio Aires, and we also used to stay in Porto Alegre. My mother used to work in Porto Alegre, which is in southern Brazil. So it's not that close to like the big cities, Rio, São Paulo, all those places. It's not around there. You know, it's South Brazil. You know what I'm saying? We from the trenches. But I always I've been there one time when I was 3 years old for like a few months before my mother passed away. You know, so I actually been to Brazil before, but I never got a chance to really live there. So what I do sometimes is I watch videos on YouTube and on the internet of Brazil to really see how it's like, because man, I be hearing all different type of stories, both good and bad. So let me quit the yapping and we gonna dive right into it. The name of this video is called The Deadly Streets of Brazil by Trap University. So we gonna see what they talking about, man. Without further ado, let's get it.
Here in the States, a shootout between two groups rarely sees the death of more than one or two people, and this is usually due to the participants on both sides being amateurs involved in a petty conflict. But when you have the Rio police storm a favela with 200 officers, 4 armored vehicles, and 2 helicopters.
So when he says favela is like the hood. That's the hood of Brazil. That's the trenches right there.
Resulting in 29 deaths, you have just an introduction to crime in Brazil. The incident I'm speaking of happened in the favela of Jacarezinho in Rio de Janeiro. This was the deadliest police operation in Rio's history, and just over a year later, the second deadliest operation would take place in Vila Cruzeiro. Now, a favela, for those of you who don't know, is just an umbrella term for the slums in Brazil. The main difference between a favela and a dangerous neighborhood in the US is, for one, you'll notice that most of the buildings in a favela look, well, improvised. And that's because they are just that, improvised buildings and shacks made from whatever materials the locals could get their hands on. And to oversimplify, this began in the 1940s with the housing crisis in the country, partially caused in Rio by migration into the city due to the rapid industrialization fueled by a former very controversial president. And the housing market couldn't take the influx of people, so obviously it became more expensive to live there. And those who couldn't afford housing, they just got resourceful and built their own housing. And the separation of favelas from the city proper, as well as the maze-like structures inside of them, makes it a drug cartel's dream headquarters. And most of them are just that, with the murder rate.
The favelas are run by the cartel. So the cartel down the gangs, they got that shit on lock. You know, they got their hood on lock, basically.
In some favelas being as high as 40 people per every 100,000. They have also had somewhat of an impact on Brazilian culture, with favelas producing their own genre of music and dance, Brazilian funk. Now, the first bloody operation.
Brazilian funk, man. Comment on this video if y'all want me to make some Brazilian funk, man. A couple of people that told me like, hey man, you gotta make some Brazilian funk, some Vale funk. What's it called? Vale funk, Brazilian funk. You got to make some of that shit, man. You got it in your blood. So, you know, that's something. One of my dreams is to make a song with a Brazilian artist. So hopefully that can happen soon, you know, and I can give you guys some Brazilian funk. Take it back to my roots one time, you know.
I covered was targeted against the group Commando Vermelho, also known as the Red Command. This group is accused of many things, including drugs and armed trafficking, kidnapping for ransom, loan sharking, hijacking armored vehicles, and of course, narco-terrorism. It was formed in Candido Mendes, a maximum security prison off the coast of Rio, made up of guerrilla warfighters and common criminals. It started as a way to collectively protect themselves against violence in the prison from other inmates and guards, but now they are splintered into several groups on the outside. But as a whole, they have a massive presence in the country and have been known to engage in waging gang wars over trade route and territory in the Amazon, which is partially inside of a federal state known as Amazonas. The second deadly raid in 2022 was also against this group. So we have two of the deadliest police operations in Rio's history against the same group. And in this 1 year, as probably a lead up to the operation, 39 different massacres took place in the state of Rio de Janeiro. These resulted in 182 deaths alone. And we haven't even covered another criminal organization yet. So let's talk about one of the Red Command's main ops, as we would say in the US. The PCC, or Primeiro Comando de Capital, is, according to a report from The Economist in 2023, the largest drug gang in all of Latin America. Now, to call that a bold claim would be a bit of an understatement, as Latin America is home to some of the wealthiest and definitely most brutal cartels.
When people say Latin America, because like when people ask me, okay, you're from Brazil, so does that mean that you're Latin? I always get confused at that question because some people don't consider Brazil to be a part of Latin America because the main language that we speak is Portuguese. We don't speak Spanish. I mean, like some people speak Spanish, but my mom and them, they all speak Portuguese. So it's like because of that reason, some people don't really consider it to be a Latin country because they say that Latin countries are all the Spanish speaking countries. I don't know. You know, if y'all know better than me, comment under this video and let me know because I'm really trying to understand. So does that mean I'm Latin? Does that mean, you know, that I'm Afro-Latin? You know, like what, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that mean that my mama was an Afro-Latina? Does that mean that my family, you know what I'm saying? So let me know what y'all think about that.
On the planet, but these guys are alleged to have the most members. They also note that as of 2023, due to a partnership they have with 'Ndrangheta, a wealthy and powerful mafia organization from Italy, they control 50% of all Brazilian drugs that make it to Europe. And according to leaked documents by the SIS, or the Portuguese version of the CIA, the PCC also has about 1,000 members operating in the Portuguese capital city of Lisbon. And as far as danger, a kingpin known as the King of the Border, due to the fact that he ran the entire trafficking ring in an area called Ponta Porã, which sits on the border with Paraguay.
Hold on. I'm looking at this map to see if I can see Porto Alegre because I think that this is kind of southern Brazil. I think this is kind of close to Porto Alegre, but I'm not really sure. But I think it's kind of close, like low key. All right, gang. Peace. Take care. Peace. So, yeah, let's jump back into it, y'all.
Turned himself into authorities because the PCC was after him, signaling that prison was seen as a more suitable option than his mansion once he figured out the PCC wanted him dead. Now, this was in 2021, and apparently his fear was reasonable as just across the border that he controlled, a wave of contract killings occurred, including the murder of a prosecutor who was on honeymoon with his pregnant wife, allegedly all on the orders of the PCC. But as bad as organized crime can be, in my opinion, the second thing Brazil is known for is honestly where it gets disturbing: femicide, or the targeting of women in violent crime, such as murder. In 2023 alone, the country recorded 83,988 sexual assaults against women, which equates to 1 every 6 minutes. And this is a nearly 7% increase from the previous year. And there are even rumored to be members in government that seek to penalize women who report crimes like this that cause certain men to lose their jobs, although some members of government seek longer sentences for the perpetrators of these crimes. There were 77,000 cases of stalking against women in 2023, which was a 34% increase from the previous year, and of course, a crime like stalking can in many cases be a prelude to murder. And this is nothing new, as all the way back in 2016, Brazil ranked 13th in the world for femicide, with 12 women a day being murdered. And this number is sadly rising. And of course, some of this is due to female involvement in gangs, whether their inclusion is voluntary or forced, but it's also important to remember that some of these statistics also account for minors. And as of 2024, Sao Paulo was ranked the most dangerous state for women in Brazil. And these statistics are not just simply counting women who were targeted for crime, but women who were targeted specifically due to their gender. Now, of all the 6 statistics I've come across in my research for these videos, this has to be the most surprising. I had heard such a thing many years ago, but I never looked into it because just growing up in a family full of women, one of our duties as men is to practice self-control and never harm a woman or child. But to see that somewhere as beautiful as Brazil has a problem with people doing the exact opposite at an alarming rate is pretty disheartening. And of course, it's not all Brazilians, but the many unaddressed crises facing the country has over time led to something like a favela existing, where criminal activity can go unchecked. No hood or mafia stronghold in the US can quite compare to the lawlessness you can encounter in a favela. I'll never forget my first time seeing a slum, a real slum like a shantytown. I was on a family cruise back when I was in middle school, and the ship docked in Barbados. I remember how beautiful it looked off the coast, only for the ship to dock and introduce me for the first time to houses made of tin, with poor and hungry children surrounding the outside, watching us all
People don't know Brazil is one of the most poorest countries in the world. Like there's areas in Brazil that are just struck by poverty, and even the favelas that he's talking about, like the hood areas, treacherous over there. There's even parts of Brazil that they say, like when you go to the rural parts, so like the parts where there's like old tribes that live there and still kind of operate like they, back in the 1700s and shit like that. And, if they see you, if you make contact with your ass, they will kill you and they will behead you and they would eat you to like, for real. Like, they don't be playing, man. They got tribalism, all type of shit.
Privileged Americans step off the boat, many just looking for a place to shop, while completely ignoring the community we had just landed in. And over 15 years later, I can still see it vividly in my mind. A kind of place no child should have to grow up. But thanks to all you guys, I can now have a voice against things like this, and maybe one day even go into these communities and help out, or at the very least, let a child know that this is not the extent of the world, that knowledge and faith are very powerful. But as always, guys, I thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment anything that I may have missed or misunderstood. But I'll see you next time.
There you guys have it, man. The deadly streets of Brazil. Whew, man, like stuff like this makes me so grateful that my mother took that sacrifice to come to the States to give us a better life, because the type of issues that people go through in other countries and third world countries and even countries like Brazil. I don't know if Brazil is considered a third world country, but the type of things that they got to go through is I can't even imagine some of those things. So I'm always big up my mother. I'm always celebrate my mother for giving me and my little brother the opportunity to grow up in a place where it's a little bit less shit going on. Even though we did grow up in Chicago, that's where I grew up, Chicago. It's still though, it's like, compared to Brazil, compared to other places, Nigeria, where my dad's from, and all these other places, it's just, it's different, So make sure that you guys like this video, comment on this video if there's anything that you heard that you want to speak on, if you want to correct me with anything, educate with me, hit me up if you know where my family is, because I'm still trying to find my Brazilian family. They're missing right now. And click that notification bell. Stick around. Look out for more videos. I got music. I got vlog videos. I got all different type of content that's on the way. But for those of you guys who been rocking, appreciate y'all. Y'all know who it is, man. It's Marko Swayze, man. Marko Stats, Swayze. Love y'all. Where the balloons at? Yeah. Man, I need my balloons, baby. From the grind.